I'm Margaret Whitfield, 74 years old, and if you're sipping coffee while hearing my voice, know I'm grateful you're here. My story is one of trust woven tight, then unraveled by betrayal, only to be stitched back together with a strength I didn't know I had. It begins with envelopes, a husband's lies, and a truth that broke my world open. But let me start at the beginning. In the late 1960s, jukebox melodies spilled from diners, and summer rain left roads shimmering. I met Lawrence Whitfield, Larry to everyone, outside a Baltimore County grocery. I was 16, the eldest daughter of a waterman turned warehouseman, learning to hem skirts at a neighbor's table. Larry drove an intercity bus, stitching small towns to cities, his navy jacket crisp, clipboard tucked under his arm. When my paper bag tore, apples rolling across the sidewalk, he laughed. I laughed. That shared sound opened a door. We married quickly, as many did then, in a small church on a quiet lane. My borrowed dress, altered to fit my narrow shoulders, and white shoes that blistered my feet were small prices for love. Our apartment above a locksmith's shop smelled of oil and metal, the radiator clicking like a stubborn metronome. We counted pennies, shared blankets, and spun stories of places we'd visit with children we hadn't yet met. The children arrived. Paul, with his curious eyes, Ruth, bold and bright, Daniel, whose soft laugh mended any day. I measured seasons by their shoes, spring scuffed sneakers, winter's boots drying by the stove. Larry's routes grew longer, from the Chesapeake Bay to the mountains. He'd return with road dust on his cuffs, a tired grin, saying, "For the family." I believed him. In our second year, he mentioned his sister, Nora, in Annapolis. "Health troubles," he said, "private matters." He handed me an envelope to mail, money for her care. "Help me help her," he said. "Of course," I replied, a good wife's answer. The envelopes became routine, monthly, sometimes more when he worked extra shifts. Some weeks, rent pressed like a bruise. Paul needed a coat, Ruth crayons, Daniel cough syrup. Yet an envelope sat on the mantel, Nora in Larry's careful block letters. I swallowed questions. A good wife trusts. A good sister-in-law doesn't pry. I mailed the envelopes, smiled at the post office clerk, and folded laundry to silence my doubts. Trust was a soft light, but also a fog. Those early years were tender and blurred, like the bay before dawn, gulls calling but invisible. By our 12th year, the envelopes were part of life's wallpaper. I didn't question, until shadows crept in. Larry's schedule shifted. His predictable runs, Harrisburg, Philadelphia, gave way to vague extra shifts to New York. He'd return days later, no diesel scent, shoes unscuffed, hands smelling of soap and starch. One winter evening, folding laundry, I slipped my hand into his coat pocket. Instead of change, I found a birthday card, construction paper dotted with childlike colors. "Happy birthday," it read. Inside, "Happy birthday, our love. May God give you many more years as the wonderful father and husband you are. With love, Nora and Rebecca." The room tilted. Husband. Father. Who was Rebecca? My throat closed, palms dampening the smudged ink. Larry's birthday had passed. I'd baked a cake, bought a watch. He'd barely touched the frosting. Now I knew why. He'd celebrated elsewhere with them. I hid the card in my apron, heart pounding, clinging to hope for another explanation. But a heavier truth whispered. My life was unraveling. Days later, the phone rang. "Harbor Transit Company," a man said. "Is Mr. Whitfield there?" I explained he was on a New York run. A pause. "Impossible, ma'am. No New York route this week. He hasn't checked in." My hand trembled on the receiver. "Must be a mistake," I said, voice steady by force. The line went dead. Not in New York. Not on the road. Where? Suspicion rooted deep. Nights grew restless, Larry's empty bed beside me, the radiators grown my only company. The card's words, "Father, husband, scratched like thorns. In a drawer, beneath bus schedules, I found an envelope. Nora Whitfield, Annapolis. My hands shook as I copied the address, hiding it behind our wedding photo. The irony stung, betrayal tucked behind vows. Larry announced a 3-day Philadelphia run, kissed my cheek, and left. The door's click was my signal. I left the children with Clara, my neighbor who asked no questions, packed a handbag with the card, and boarded a Greyhound to Annapolis. The 2-hour ride was a tightening knot, fields blurring past, my reflection faint in the glass. Was Nora his sister? Or something darker? Annapolis smelled of salt and river. I followed the address to a pale yellow house, its garage converted into Nora's atelier, custom clothing. Fabric bolts gleamed through windows. The bell jingled as I entered, the air thick with starch and lavender. Dresses hung on mannequins, hems precise, work I recognized from my own needle. "Good morning," a girl chirped, about 14, brown hair tied back. Her eyes stopped me, gray, flecked with hazel, like Paul's. Whitfield eyes. "I'm looking for Nora," I said, voice catching. "My mom's out for supplies," she replied. "My dad's home." "Want to speak with him, Dad?" My heart lurched. Footsteps sounded, and there stood Larry, face blanching as if I were a ghost. "Margaret," he whispered. The girl, Rebecca, frowned. "Dad, do you know her?" Before he could answer, the door opened. A woman, elegant, hair pinned, entered with a fabric bolt. Her smile collapsed. "Larry, what's happening?" I held up the card, trembling. "This." Rebecca's face crumpled. "Dad, do I have brothers and a sister?" I nodded, voice breaking. 3. Paul, Ruth, Daniel, and soon another. I touched my abdomen, a secret I'd kept. Nora's breath caught. "You told me you were a widower," she spat at Larry. "Swore on your parents' graves." Rebecca sobbed. "You said we were your only family." Larry's hand raked his face, a trapped gesture. "I didn't want to hurt anyone. I love you all." My voice rose, raw. "Love? Feeding us scraps while building her this shop? Telling me Nora was sick while raising another daughter?" Nora pointed at me. "Those envelopes, her money?" "Yes," I said, bitterness burning. "Money for our children's shoes, medicine, sent here." The shop suffocated, dresses silent witnesses. "Please, Margaret," Larry begged. "We can fix this." I stepped back. "Don't touch me." Nora's voice cracked. "You lied to us both." Rebecca's sobs echoed. "Why, Dad?" Silence screamed louder than words. I don't recall leaving. One moment, Rebecca's cries rang. The next, I was in the March air, walking to the bus stop. The ride home blurred, the address slip torn in my hands. Back in Baltimore, I decided. When Larry returned, he'd leave for good. He didn't return. Sunday, Monday, then Tuesday, a call from Harbor Transit. Larry had quit, leaving a letter. My stomach dropped. He'd abandoned both families. Rent loomed, my hemming pay insufficient for 3 children, soon 4. I found overdue bills and letters from loan sharks, debts in my name. That night, 2 men in leather jackets appeared. "Your husband owes. You pay." I stalled, promising bank talks. They left, but their boots promised return. At the kitchen table, after the children slept, I wept in darkness. Paul asked for his father. Ruth cried. Daniel clutched his toy truck, whispering, "Daddy'll bring candy." Dawn broke, and I pulled out my mother's Singer sewing machine. I wound the bobbin, trembling, and began. Hemming skirts, patching coats, mending trousers, coins clinked into a jar. Word spread. Neighbors brought clothing. The living room filled with thread, fabric, and iron hissing late. Gossip trailed. Husband ran off. Pregnant again. How will she survive? I refused to bow. Each stitch was defiance, each garment a vow. We won't starve. Spring turned to summer, Larry a ghost in a driver's cap. One humid afternoon, the phone rang. "Margaret, it's Nora." I nearly hung up, but her tremor stopped me. "He left us," she said. "The shop's failing. I don't know what to do." Anger surged, then softened. She was me, in a different house. "Come to Baltimore," I said. "Maybe together we can survive." 2 weeks later, Nora and Rebecca arrived, suitcases in hand, faces haunted. Clara offered them a room. At first, tension reigned. Paul ignored Rebecca. Ruth blamed her. But cracks appeared. Paul and Rebecca swapped novels on the porch. Ruth let Rebecca braid her hair. Daniel called her Becky. One evening, a stranger delivered an envelope, Larry's forged notes, debts scattered like glass. Nora paled. "He used us both." I folded the papers. "We cleaned the wreckage together." "Over coffee," Nora said. "I can't go back. Creditors circle." I looked at my fabric-strewn home. "Stay. Let's build something." Harbor Grace Clothing was born. 2 women, discarded, stitching survival. We set up a sign, borrowed a rack, handed out flyers. Neighbors came, uniforms hemmed, dresses made. We cut patterns on the floor, ironed until our arms ached, stitched until fingers bled. Joy grew in building something ours. The children helped. Paul delivered garments, Rebecca balanced books, Ruth sketched designs, Daniel swept floors. A cannery manager ordered aprons, smocks, a break. We worked nights, children napping on cloth, the machine our heartbeat. Delivering on time earned respect. Schools, clinics, shipyards followed. Gossip called us foolish, but each customer was proof of dignity reclaimed. One autumn, a cousin's letter arrived. Larry, killed in a North Carolina crash. No funeral, just an obituary. I felt no relief, only hollowness. Nora and I lit a candle, not for him, but for our freedom. Years wove into decades. Harbor Grace moved to a Main Street storefront. Paul became an architect, designing bright schools. Ruth turned uniforms into fashion. Daniel drew contracts. Rebecca opened a foundation for abandoned girls. Nora, my sister by choice, passed after illness, her hand in mine. Now, at 74, I sit on the porch of our business-built house, crickets humming, grandchildren's photos on my walls. I never remarried. My legacy isn't another husband, but proving betrayal doesn't define me. Family isn't just blood, it's who stands with you. Larry tore 2 households apart, but gave us a stronger one. Pain forged us, betrayal began us. To you, carrying secrets or wounds, your worth isn't in those who failed you, but in the strength you find rising, trembling but unbroken. I found it on a bus to Annapolis, stepping into a truth that should have destroyed me. Instead, it set me free. If my story touched you, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and share where you're watching from. Your kindness helps me tell these stories, perhaps threading hope for someone stitching their life back together.